I think I'm going to hire a DJ.
Let's do it.
Hi, everybody. It's Stacey Statterman, and I'm here with another Level Up Leadership interview. Leading during uncertain times is complex. It's different. And we know that for many of us, 2021 is about renewal, pivoting a little, thriving, even though it still seems somewhat chaotic and unclear. And I've been coming to you time and time again, a little bit anchored around this idea that the future doesn't fit in the containers of the past. That's been a quote of inspiration for me that I have tacked up many places in my workspace. And I've been doing this series, as you know, if you've been following along, because leveling up right now has never maybe been more important. We have so much to do, so much opportunity. And so I'm really excited to have my friend and former colleague, Karishma Raman Azmat. I only really just call you Karishma, so I feel like you should shorten down. You're like Madonna.
Too many names. Too many.
I love it. And if you don't know Karishma, she is the Director of International Marketing at Viacom CBS, and she's got so much going on and has done so much already. I'm excited to keep hearing about your journey and how things are going. Of course, we know each other from back in the Warner Media days, and Karishma's also worked with CNN. She's an NYU grad. She's a twin mom, community leader, activist, advocate, volunteer, first generation daughter of immigrants. I have had so much fun watching you from afar, you know, as we've all been a little bit apart during the pandemic. And so to me, you were just an obvious person to have joined in this conversation about leveling up. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here to share some of your words of wisdom.
So excited to be here with you, Stacey, and just have this great conversation.
Awesome. Well, so part of our prep earlier today included one of your quotes, one of the things that you find as a source of information. And I would love to have you share with everyone watching a little bit more about what this means to you and why it is so critical as you think about being a leader in your community, in your work, as a mom, etc. So tell us a little bit about this quote.
Of course. Your heart is a muscle the size of your fist. When things hit you like a ton of bricks and things make sense, and just kind of, sometimes it's a cheesy quote on a mug, or, something that you see somewhere, you read somewhere. And this one really affected me because for me, this was the nexus of my fight, but also my empathy. And whether it's, working at, like we did at Warner Media for some of the biggest corporations and brands in the world, to working on the nonprofit side, to working on political organizations, when you fight with both your heart and your fist, the business imperative, the victory often follows. And even if it isn't a victory, the passion that you bring to the fight makes it that much more rewarding. So think about some of the awesome brands that you and I have worked on, whether it was, Time or CNN or HBO. We're here at Viacom CBS on these incredible brands that we have. When you bring fight into your passion, but you also bring those smarts, when your heart and your head work in tandem, it's just that much more of a rewarding experience. And that quote really always kind of centers me when I think about that.
It's, even if I had to pick out a quote for you, I would probably have picked something if I was aware of it, because I think this is certainly reflective of how I've experienced you as someone in my life. And one of the things that I know has been a real source of inspiration from you, and probably continues to be a source of inspiration, is your parents and their journey to this country, and all of the big dreams and tiny suitcases. So, in my prep, I went on the internet and I found a video presentation that you did where you talked a little bit about them. But tell us a little bit about this idea of the big dreams and the tiny suitcases, and how this connects to who you are as a leader in the community, and of course in your work at Viacom.
Of course. So I have a very common story. I'm the first generation daughter of immigrants whose parents came here in the 80s with nothing but big dreams on tiny suitcases and TWA Terminal 7, when the TWA terminal was still there or whatever. And they came to what they believed to be was the greatest country in the world as, teens, young people, to try to craft a life, not just for themselves, but for their children that were yet to be born. So I carry this idea of, big dreams. How do you fill them into tiny suitcases? What does it look like when you don't know anybody, either in a new country or in a new workspace? What does it look like when you have dreams of what you want your career to look like, but maybe you don't know the path forward, or your way forward seems tiny? And I think that that's the intersectional nature of who we are as a workforce, as people, as human beings, as just getting to know each other and as friends and family, is everybody kind of has the same narrative. So maybe not everybody's parents were an immigrant, but then there were people that don't have family or friends that were part of a corporate environment or structure anyway. Or maybe you're the first of your family to go to grad school, or the first of your family to do so many things. So you carry inside of that intersectional awareness of that we all bring, this idea of big dreams and tiny suitcases. And when you recognize that, your dreams can still fit in tiny suitcases, and you get the suitcases and you create that suitcase that can contain the size of your dreams. So my parents, went on to, go to Columbia and NYU, and I followed their footsteps, but you never forget that it was that kind taxi driver that picked them up at JFK. Or that one friend of a friend of a friend, like old world stuff that you remember, like, Godfather 1920s stuff. But that immigrant story, whether Irish or Italian or German or South Asian or whatever that wave of a Hispanic American, whatever that wave of immigrant story is, that's why it's so obscenely common, because that is the American story of big dreams and tiny suitcases.
I love that. And I feel like this dovetails beautifully with something that we both follow, Scott Galloway, and are familiar with him. And he's his call to action. Of course, he's a hardcore guy who wants to see results in business and is an advocate for making things happen in the traditional business sense. But I found it very interesting that one of his calls to action for all of us right now has been this idea of repair and strengthen relationships. And I feel like that really relates to what you just shared about, the humanity of our shared story, even though it may seem different on the surface. What do you think?
I love this quote, and he's such a lightning rod too, right? In terms of just being able to kind of nail an idea. And you might not necessarily agree with everything that he says, but this one I love as feeding into the business imperative. So warm and fuzzies aside, feelings aside, this is about dollars. This is about data. This is about technology. This is about content and media. So if we just think about it in two parcels, if not now, then when? The fact that we have now been forced to stay at home with our feelings and do work within these same confines while the world is going through something unprecedented, even though we hate that word, is the time to take stock of those feelings and to repair and kind of build on those relationships. So I'll talk about it from the corporate perspective. So those of us in big media, those of us in the content game, those of us working on entertainment brands, news brands, this is a cardinal time to think about your relationship with the person on the end of that screen, not as ROI, not as big data, not as an ad sales metric, not as a content by person, but how are they consuming that? What are they living through? Do they have two kids that are crying while trying to hold on a job? How are they putting food on the table or taking care of an ailing relative? Like, there are so many parts of people's beings that have now been truly realized, that now we see that, at least I do, particularly work on the international side of the business, with our clients and our partners and our content partners around the world. Something that really deeply affected me this year with the COVID crisis was this quote that someone said, which is, we are all going through the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. Yeah. And never was that more actualized for me than when I, as a proud American, am talking to clients all day long in South America, Africa, Asia. Literally, I was on with Australia right before we started talking. And our vaccine hesitancy is something that my colleagues around the world wish for. The fact, they had brought it up in conversation. They're like, Krishma, is it true we have to give you Americans, baseball tickets or candy or ice cream to get a shot? We would love to be online for a shot. And that just grounded me so strongly, Stacey, that maybe I shouldn't ask about the status of my deck right now. Right. Maybe I shouldn't lead in with, so what's the ratings information on X show for X channel? It was such a humbling and grounding moment of, again, head and fist, right? So heart and fist, but also repair your relationships, reassess them, see what really matters, and meet people where they are, especially now more than ever.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny. I have used that same storm, different boats, different oars, you know.
Yes.
I've
Pick
used
your
that.
metaphor. Pick your metaphor.
Yeah, I've used that as an anchor for a number of kind of reconnection workshops and trainings that I've done over the last year. And it's where it's what recognizing and asking those questions and getting the stories of the challenges that other communities are having with say the vaccine is such an it reminds us that as much as we feel like we're all together, we're also so far apart. Our experiences can be quite different, and we can be together, but it's going to be through that pathway of empathy and understanding and being a human being first.
Absolutely.
I was talking with a client the other day, and her family's from Colombia, and she has, all of her relatives really are in Colombia. And she said they're trying to fly to the US to get the vaccine because they don't trust the vaccines that are available to them. And I'm like, I had no awareness that was going on. There's only so much news that we can absorb. And so we have to kind of do a little bit of our own work as a human being, I think, to be open to doing business, to be to have people in a place of, yes, we can do the work that we need to do. But thank you for meeting me where I am, because today is a good day or today's a bad day, or I don't know what you're going through, but this is what we're going through. So this story is super, super important. When you think about, because your international role, you have this window into sort of the complexities of having people in a distributed way that was always distributed because they were in different countries, but now, in some ways micro distributed. What's sort of your best practices as you think about, working across international lines in this? Are we allowed to go to UK, for example? On a daily basis, things are changing.
Yeah.
How do you continue on to sort of bring the organizations and clients and people to the hard work of the business over and over and over? Empathy is a key thing, but what else do you have in your tool set for us?
I think the best part of working in content and being as part of Viacom CBS and just the great brands we have, MTV, Paramount Plus, Nickelodeon, is content is universal. Languages are different. Mm-hmm. Every parent everywhere knows the value of putting their kid in front of a SpongeBob, episode for 30 minutes and the joy that brings both the child and the respite for the parents. Or content travels borders. We now live in a world where subtitles are not a problem. Can you imagine states before we would watch something and it would have to be dubbed in English? And now, whether, it's our kids watching something, they actually choose to put subtitles on so they can consume it on the tiniest of devices. So what I found in being fortunate enough to have this arsenal of brands in my toolkit is the wares that I'm selling, the widgets I'm selling are actually content based on human emotion. Mm-hmm. The greatest storytellers of our time, making our kids laugh, a blockbuster movie. You think about the small example of the iCarly reboot. There's a whole generation of girls that grew up, boys, and that grew up with iCarly that now get to see Carly growing up, and they see it on Paramount Plus. And my gosh, it's doing gangbusters around the world. So it's proof positive that great content is universal. Because human emotion is universal. I want to laugh, Stacey. I want to get out of this, whatever this is, and I want to laugh. Or transport me to a new world. Or let's watch a really great, movie Infinite with Mark Wahlberg. Like, let's just pretend to be in a sci-fi world, even though reality seems very sci-fi right now. And let's just transport and get away. Or let me watch this, the sporting event to kind of take me away or transport me somewhere. So when I'm dealing with global clients and we're talking about content, that's a great unifier. Mm-hmm. About what we love. And you got to love what you do in this business, right? So you got to be really passionate about the content. You got to know that, that there's a whole generation of showrunners and writers and directors and actors that bring something different. And when you sell those as your widgets, it makes that conversation that much more easier.
Awesome. That's awesome. And, I'm glad you brought up the word emotion, because I think that one can be the idea of having emotion in work. And it's on one hand, sort of ridiculous to say it out loud. can't bring emotions to work. Like whoever started that idea.
Yeah.
As emotional beings, we are there all the time. But let's face it, some cultures, corporately especially, are very uncomfortable with the idea of being human, bringing emotions to work. How do you, because I experience you as an emotional being. I've always, and hopefully you've had the same with me, but we've worked with people that's a really uncomfortable thing for them. What's your perspective on that idea of emotions in the workplace?
I totally, and I say emotions versus feelings, right? So, and Stacey, the fact that you and I can sit on two sides of 10 years, right, of our shared experience, and see how the world has changed in terms of what is socially acceptable. So, our friends and former colleagues that know us know that we came up in an environment where you left your feelings at the door. You projected an air of knowing everything, even if you didn't. Optics were very important. So first in, last out, or how many hours are you logging in for sales calls, or why are you at your desk? You shouldn't be here. And I grew up in that environment, and you were a leader in that environment, but yet you never fell into those norms. And the idea of emotion versus feelings, I will say, as a testament to you, Stacey, was I was a rookie coming up as a marketing assistant. That didn't stop you from asking me, lowly little me, to come into your office to pitch around Louis Vuitton or whatever it is that we were working on. Mm-hmm. You understood always early and passionately the value of bringing in different voices in the room, different perspective, different buyer sets. So I might not be who Departures or American Express Travel envisioned is a Louis Vuitton shopper, but actually I'm aspirationally that person in their demo at the time. So you led with empathy through leadership and emotion through leadership at a time where, it was du jour to show that you didn't. And I think that was what made our projects and our work, if I can brag about you, that much more robust and successful, because we saw the prism and the lens of everyone. So when you and I would walk into a pitch meeting, we had thought about the junior sales planner in the room and the SVP in the room. We thought about how to speak to all levels, because you and I often know that while decisions are made at the highest levels, the actual work, the widgets, the elves are actually much lower, and decisions are made at those levels as well. So, you've never been shy about bringing empathy and emotion into leadership. And I can name at least 10 more examples where you've done that for me, for others. But I think that we were right, Stacey, we were right that way. 10 years later, on the other side of this paradigm, this is the way. All voices, intersectional voices, listening to all voices and not thinking that you have to know it all by yourself.
First of all, thank you so much for those kind words.
You remember that? Tell me you remember the pitch.
I do remember that. I had no idea what was coming. Thank you. I'm glad that had a lasting impact.
It did.
So I think I know the answer to this final thing I want to ask you about, and it's this idea of doing hard things. And as you maybe think about the hard things that need to be done, is it to keep the momentum going with what you just outlined, or what is it? What is it for you? What is it? What should we all be keeping our eye on as we want to lead better?
The hard thing is acknowledging when you don't know something. The hard thing is asking for help. The hard thing is always having to pretend all the time that you do know it all. The hard thing is taking stock of the fact that, wow, this is hard. All of those things are hard. And I think that when we level set, we can actually level jump. We can level up. Yeah. And I think that when you take stock of the fact that there is something I don't know and I can't learn fast enough, or I'm this far along in my career, and these Zennials and Gen Zs are making me feel like I got to get my arthritis medication. So there's nothing wrong with learning that there are hard things I don't know that we can learn together or solve together. And I think that's just an essence of our whole being. I would argue to that question is you don't have to do hard things alone.
Oh, I love that. I have goosebumps. Awesome. So as I expected, it would be an incredible conversation. And I'm so appreciative that you could take the time to come on and bat around some great ideas and
always
inspired you. So just to remind everyone who's watching, we've got Karishma. She's like a one-name person in my book. So you can find her. She's at the Viacom CBS right now, and of course she's on LinkedIn, which is a great place to connect with her. And I know you always love connecting with people who believe like you believe and see the world the way you do. And the good thing is there's so many more of us than there were maybe 10 years ago who are trying to lead with more presence, more humanity, more completeness. And I really appreciate everything that you shared here today. And I will be rewatching this.
If you remember nothing from anything that we've talked about in the past 20 minutes, remember that we were right and you were right.
I love that. I love that.
Write that down.
I'm going to write that down. So Renew, Pivot, and Thrive 2021, big part of this theme around leveling up. Karishma, honestly, outstanding. And I can't wait to have you back for another conversation. And I will be back next week, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, thereabouts, with another amazing leader to drop some wisdom bombs on us. And thank you. I really, really, really appreciate it. And if anyone leaves a comment or has something to add, we'll follow up after the broadcast because we don't really see any of that live. So thank you, Karishma. It's been great.
Thanks. Bye, Stace.
All right, let's see.
I gotta love that music.